Well, we're back again, blade lovers, with more knives from Columbia River Knife and Tool, aka Cricket, CRKT. And they're all designed by James Williams. And really, I'm only going to be talking about one of these today, but I figured since they're all so similar and all drawn from the Japanese samurai tradition, I thought I would have these all out for a comparison. Here is the small guy of the bunch, and this is the Hisatsu. You can tell what they all are because Columbia River likes to put a few letters on the blades. That's the Hisatsu 2, picked up a number of years ago, and very similar blade shape and design to the Otanashi no Ken. This guy, which I reviewed about, I don't know, a few weeks ago. This is a big guy. So whereas the Hisatsu had a 3-inch blade, maybe a 3 1/4, we got about 4 1/2 on this giant frame locking folder. As I said, all designed by James Williams, noted self-defense tactical instructor and Japanese swordsman with a katana, wakizashi, and other blades. You can see a lot of videos of him doing tamashigiri, which is cutting techniques on straw mats online on YouTube. Very interesting. So I'll get into a brief description of the blade types here, as I have printed out a sheet from Columbia River Knife and Tool. This Otanashi no Ken uses the Osuraku blade design, so I would assume that the Hisatsu uses also the Osuraku blade design. And that Osuraku blade design was made famous by the 16th century samurai warlord Takeda Shingen. It is considered to be efficient and effective. And these are all highly evolved piercing blades, but they can cut too. Had to put an edge on this one. Some of the complaints about these knives is particularly because of the fairly shallow grind that, or I should say high grind, with a mid-length steep grind. What am I trying to say? I think this one worked out to have about a 25-degree factory edge, so nothing real thin behind the edge at all. A little bit of work on the Workshop Precision Sharpener, and I have what I feel is a favorable edge for me. Aggressive, but not too fine. All right, so that is the Otanashi no Ken. Now here's the unveiling. This is fairly much brand new, just out. This is the HZ6. So where's the Japanese name in that? Well, the HZ6 it derives its name, I'm reading now, from the ancient Hira-Zukuri blade style. Notice that this isn't far off from the Otanashi no Ken, Osuraku style, except we have kind of a secondary point, aka Americanized tanto, back here on the Osuraku style, whereas the HZ6 gets its name from Hira-Zukuri with a 6-inch blade, actually 6.5-inch blade. And this was popularized in daggers and utilized as a powerful short sword for survival and everyday use. So this goes all the way back to the 8th century, according to James Williams. Let's take a look at it. It is not a lightweight by any means, and I haven't even weighed it up yet, but it's got some heft to it, even though we've got skeletonizing inside. And I broke it all down and took some photographs, which I'll share with you in a moment. We have the traditional peaked spine on this, where it comes to a V. That aids in penetration. As you can see, it has a very long, pointy, tapering point. I stropped this up a little bit. It cuts pretty well. We'll do a few cutting demos later in this video. Most notably about this particular fixed blade is that the knife's handle pulls from a Japanese influence. The carved X's representing the traditional wrapping of a sword, but it's not only for aesthetic purposes, it's designed for delivering a tremendous grip in cold, wet conditions or with gloves or gloveless hands. And there's a durability with each strike and blow. Okay, I may not have read that correctly. So, you know, you read a lot of the manufacturer's hyperbole, and you don't want to get too into it because I'm not Columbia River Knife and Tool. I'm going to tell you what I think about this particular fixed blade. First thing I noticed is that the handle that emulates the wrapped cord on either a traditional tanto or traditional katana, wakizashi, what have you, it is kind of sharp. So I said, well, what am I going to do with this guy? I mean, these ridges right in here in the black G10, and by the way, yes, they're black G10, and this is an SK5 tool steel. So it is akin to other steels like 1095, 01, and even D2 to a degree. They're high-speed tool steels that are water quenched, to the best of my knowledge and brief research on this. You see the X's, that's supposed to emulate a cord wrap. You see the notches, those are the humps from the cord wrap. But it is a little too sharp and aggressive. These are very steep, sharp cuts in here. And each of these points can pick up your skin a little bit. So I took off the handle slabs, and they were easily removable through these T15 Torx screws on 6 of them, 3 on each side. And the handle slabs came off relatively easily. So here is what I got. I said, this knife is so heavy in the handle, not unmanageably so, that I'm wondering if it has any weight relieving. But look, sure enough, there's your weight relieving. 2 large ovals in the handle. Here are your 2 slabs of G10, and it seems to be a very good grade G10. There's 3 out of the 6 screws. I left the others out of the picture for some reason. And you have these 3 collars, bushings, that go into the steel tang and give the screws a place to purchase. So that's interesting, huh? I don't often do that, but I figure I'd do it ahead of time and then show you the results later. So I took these off, and I actually hand filed each of these points here on each side of the handle and on each handle slab. And it's a little better now, but believe me, you don't lose any grip. What I'm going to do with these, I'm not sure. I may just take those points down a little bit. It's flush. They don't stick out, but your flesh does go in. And I think with gloves, these would be perfect. But On bare hands, maybe, particularly if you're working with this knife, and I'm not sure if you'd be skinning anything or whittling with anything. I'm sure it has some utility, but it's primarily designed as a tactical knife. So, that being said, and without getting too long-winded here, I do want to give you as much of a complete overview as I can. One guy got this and did a review on it, and he said he was sending it back because it was completely dull and wouldn't cut anything. Well, with that steep grind, so we got an 11.5 inch, 11.25 inch overall. We have almost 6.5 inches. We're going to call it 6.5 because they do. Blade right to the handle, and we got a cutting edge of 6 inches. Now, of course, I left my other tools on the side. So wireless microphones are a wonderful thing. Let's take a look at what we've got for handle thickness. It's not too bad, really. 0.58. For a fixed blade, that's not bad. And I'm going to grab the blade stock right up there. 5.3 millimeters. Heavy duty stuff. Finally, it wouldn't hurt to turn the scale the right direction. Okay, first, knife only. 8.332 ounces. If we put her in the sheath, this is a Bolteron sheath. Talk about that in a minute. So this is 10.12 ounces with the sheath. So for a fixed blade, it's not a small fixed blade. It isn't really light, but it isn't really an anchor either, I don't think. This is very similar to Kydex. It's said to be a little less brittle in the cold than Kydex, but it's a very similar material, Bolteron, and apparently the Armed Services uses it a lot in a lot of their holsters and whatnot. It's cheaper than Kydex, and I would say for our purposes here for a knife sheath, pretty much equivalent, but it's not one of those molded sheaths, but they probably do use a blank and mold these ahead of time. They're not molded to each individual knife. Okay, we've got slots here, and that brings up the next point. Which is this hardware came with a knife and was not attached. And if I can ever open the bag, what we got there is just the screws. And yeah, we've got, I think I lost one already. Anyway, we've got screws. Oh, look at that. Yes, so we've got screws and the retainers for those screws. This is just basically a spring metal clip. The problem is your only attachment points are right here. So it's either going to go, it's going to slide up and down in those slots and adjust. Which means that you can put it down inside your pants, you can put it inside the belt, but it's going to stand straight up and down. And I think the best way to go with something like this is to use a single belt loop strap. Then you can angle it. You can do appendix carry. You can do small of the back carry, kidney carry, whatever. I would like to see it also mount horizontally, although it's fairly long overall for that. But it's certainly up to each individual user. Now, it's a thick stock. They did do their best to get that grind about as high as they could and still maintain a strong spine. It is a fairly fine point, as you can see. Not anything to worry a lot about. It's a piercing knife and it's meant to pierce flesh. Let's face that. It's not meant to jab into a wood log or a plank and wiggle it back and forth and test the tip strength. Although the steel is a high carbon steel, as I said, and the SK5, is it? And I was going to read you something on that steel, but I highly suggest Knife Steel Compositions. Check it out, and you can learn a little more about any steel. Just look them up, and it gives you some really good background on those steels. But I did say we were going to do a few cutting tests. So let's do that. Partly in response to the guy that said that his had no edge, and that could be. A little bit of tearing, ain't the finest edge going, but that was just a stropped edge on that one. I would say that I can do a little bit better if I resharpen that guy on either KME or on a work sharp precision sharpener is actually pretty good. Now this guy was pretty dull out of the box, and I managed to put a fairly decent edge on that. Seems a little ragged in front of the camera. Certainly a piercer. Good enough for government work was the old expression. No offense to you guys working for the government. But here we do have the Columbia River Knife and Tool HZ6, designed by James Williams. And you can see that James Williams does this handle design on his custom knives as well. He does have custom folders and custom fixed blades, but you're talking $300, $400, $500. Here, I believe this is going for $125. Got this from White Mountain. If you do purchase at White Mountain, use my discount code OLDSWORD. You'll get 10% off. So that's $12.50 off of $125, and you're doing a little better and a lot closer to $100. So, do I like it? Do I think it's viable? I do, for certain tactical purposes or purely as a collector. I've got a little bit of paper fuzz there. They don't come razor sharp out of the box. Some people might find that to be acceptably sharp. You can see it's a fairly rough grind. I haven't done anything to that grind. I did put it on a leather strop with some compound, and I was able to bring that edge up. And I would say it's a good working edge at this point. It's not fine enough to zip through paper like a laser. I'm sure that if I worked a little bit on that edge, or even send it out to some great sharpening guys like Mike Crazy Sharp Emler or Jared Neves, or one of those guys, they could probably put a hell of an edge on that and maybe bring it down a little bit in degrees. I have a feeling that's around 22 degrees, certainly not 20, and it might even be 25. I haven't measured. Okay, that's about what I can say on this knife. It does feel a little handle heavy. Balance is right there. Not bad. But, you know, you decide. Could be something you're real keen on. Excuse the expression. Or you may want to pass on it. Totally up to you. Cool looking knife. Cool idea. And jury's still out on it. Hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to give it a like and subscribe. Thank you very much. This old sword, signing out.